We start with super hungry speedster Barry Allen, aka The Flash, played here by child grooming teen strangler extraordinaire Ezra Miller, cleaning up after Batman's latest mess, giving the rest of the Justice League are too busy doing their own shit to help out and presumably don't want to be caught dead cameoing in this flick.
Honestly, I don't blame them.
And before he can totally bollock Batfleck for not giving a crap how much utter carnage and mayhem he's unleashed at 8:30 in the morning and just trying to capture a few goons, Barry has to save a bunch of babies currently in the process of being defenestrated.
What the hell did I just watch?
But much like any typical bloke, he prioritises yummy snacks before getting on with babysitting. And using his subsequent boost in energy levels, he's able to save multiple bubbers with piss poor CGI, mainly by microwaving one and dragging the others onto a gurney, thus technically saving their lives, but likely leaving them with catastrophic joint trauma and lifelong whiplash injuries in the process. Huzzah! Speaking of careless nutters caked in spandex, Old Bats is off doing some highway skating trying to stop some baddies, but just ends up going over a fucking bridge and hanging around like a riot chump. Luckily, he's saved in the nick of time by that wonderful woman Diana Prince, who promptly makes him look a riot cuck when her lasso of truth makes him whine on about his childhood trauma and shit.
I developed this all-powerful persona to compensate for my childhood trauma.
Nobody cares! And you need to shut up!
Now on the brink of being fired, given he's ironically always late for work despite being the fastest man alive, he bumps into his chocolatey old crush Iris, who says that she's covering his dad's prison appeal tomorrow, so totally asks how he is after his mum was supposedly killed by his pops years ago and stuff. But he just maintains his daddy's innocence and vows to get him out of the big house once and for all. And after creeping around his old childhood house, where his mum pegged it one time for a bit of nostalgia, we see in a flashback how said mum helped him out with his super tricky maths homework by essentially telling him to give up on it already, because
not every problem has a solution. Sometimes you just have to let go.
And before you can say, well, I'm sure this innocuous line won't come back in the third act as a moral motivator for the protagonists, she tells his dad to shut up and sod off to the shops to get some tomatoes, before being found dead in the kitchen upon his return.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
And drunk Barry hilariously just runs out of the house, despite his dad specifically asking him to call 911.
Oh, that's cold.
So, now overcome with emotion and regret, Baz does some super fast running till he accidentally enters some sort of bubble realm echo chamber. And no, not current day Reddit, but in fact some place called the Chrono Bowl, where he can totally see into past events and shit.
Wow.
Naturally, he runs off to his best bum buddy Batfleck, to tell him all about how he can now revisit recent events and presumably go save his dead parents what got smoked in a small alley years ago. But Bat Bruce says he don't want him to start messing about with time and space, because that trauma made him who he is and that's like super dangerous, bro. And I assume because he also wouldn't get any inheritance money to buy big cars and rubber bat suits if they survived, and so just tells him to be more responsible already, given he's now a bona fide member of the JLA. And before you can say, why are they casually discussing superhero shit out in public in their civvies when there's all sorts of randos walking past to overhear their convo and totally work out their secret identities already? Iris turns up and totally apologises for coming off as insensitive the other day, and proceeds to unintentionally encourage him to ignore that bat brain fella and totally go back and fix things already, given 3 lives of his loved ones got ruined over a can of tinned veggies. So he proceeds to do just that, but this time encounters some sort of crusty speed monster, what knocks him out of the current timeline and into an alternate universe. One where his dopey mum actually remembered the can of tomatoes when she went shopping and thus lived happily ever after, and went on to raise another highly annoying 18-year-old Barry, but this time with girly hair and a super creepy laugh.
No!
And he just can't believe another version of himself exists with his face and presumably the same penchant for grooming kids, strangling small girls in Icelandic bars and harassing drunk crooners at karaoke nights.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Anyway, after getting his new double up to speed, he realises that today's the day that he's meant to get his superpowers in a freak lab accident, and so promptly sets about organising his own near-death experience by vibrating through a bunch of walls in his workplace and getting him in position to be crispy fried by freak lightning.
Nice.
Which he totally does, but unfortunately takes the brunt of the hit and he totally ends up losing his abilities to run fast and rub himself up against innocent walls. But luckily, Barry with a shit haircut, and no, I meant the other Barry with a shit haircut, finally develops the abilities of the Speed Force, but can't seem to use them without constantly being naked for some reason.
Dirty bastard.
Anyway, OG Barry just wonders how he'll ever get back home now he's just a bog standard human again, before giving this naturist his old suit, what he keeps packed tight inside his ring, but not in the fun way. And before you can say, why are they again doing this shit outside in a public space when they could have suited up before they left the private apartment, they see a bunch of TVs warning about how some alien fella called General Zod is looking to kidnap an innocent farm boy from Kansas. So Barry fills Barry in on the plot of Man of Steel and how fucking terrible it was, and how they have to go find this super fella called Superman to warn him, and maybe even assemble the entire Justice League a few years early to prevent any of the horrible events taking place, and thereby prevent Zack Snyder from unleashing his neck-snapping Psycho Clark what loves leaving his daddy to die in tornadoes upon innocent cinema audiences worldwide. But unfortunately, he can't find a trace of his supermates anywhere. And worse, he realises he's changed a bunch of this timeline's history when he finds out Eric Stoltz starred in Back to the Future here. But luckily, this is a universe where at least Batman still exists, so they head over to a pretty gothic looking Wayne Manor and instantly get set upon by a hairy hobo. Turns out this is an alt-U version of the Batfella, but the Michael Keaton version from the late 80s, where love's screaming about getting nuts or some shit.
Then he had us. Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Also luckily, the old git quickly gives up trying to fend off unarmed intruders in his own home and lobbing rolling pins and brooms at a pair of irritating soy boys, and quickly explains the mechanics of time travel and the concept of the multiverse to him using a bowl of spaghetti. Lol, as you do. So he then tells them that he's not interested in helping them find a superpowered alien in order to stop another superpowered alien. Well, given he's in his 60s and totally qualifies for a free bus pass now, and is totally retired from dressing up like a giant flying rodent at night to stalk men in dark alleys. Because Gotham is one of the safest cities, now the public eventually got sick of having to rely on vigilantes to deal with criminals for years and finally voted Republican. Though, after accidentally finding the Batcave, the group decide to do a trucy team-up, but Barry first stops to give himself a proper bollocking, first for being so jovial, and then not appreciating how he got to grow up with two parents and zero trauma, and hilariously comes to finally understand why nobody likes him, neither on screen or off screen.
No, he's got a point.
A little later, and the world's greatest detective has managed to dig up a super secret redacted file, giving them the super secret location of the super secret super alien bloke what they're totally looking for, and who's being held by a bunch of mercenaries at an off-the-books black site in Siberia, but also stops to warn them about the inevitable intersections that totally exist in the multiverse, and how indeed some events are fixed and can't ever be changed.
That is some heavy shit.
So, after jetting off on their holidays in the Batwing over to Mother Russia, the absolute mad lads do a quick bit of skydiving and properly break into the super secure facility, where Batman soon gets up to his old tricks of smacking up naughty blokes in dark rooms.
Just like old times.
Anyway, they soon find where Superman's being kept and also break into that facility to go rescue him. But in a shocking twist, what no one could ever see coming. Well, unless you've watched the trailers or saw any of the endless TV spots and posters plastered all around the walls of your local cinema. Turns out the filmmakers have gone and given into DC's DEI mandates and totally turned Superman trans.
What?
I fucking knew it, dude.
Cause now the once super dude now has super boobs, because reasons. Initially disappointed that this totally ain't the godlike ET they were looking for, they decide to take her with them anyway for shits and giggles. And I guess cause she's kinda hot, even with that lesbo haircut.
Ha! Gay!
Once back at Wayne Manor and having explained the situation to the recovering gender-confused alien prisoner they just rescued, said gender-confused alien prisoner what they just rescued handily reveals that she isn't Kal-El, aka Superman, who they're looking for, and also ain't actually trans at all, but in fact Kal-El's cousin Kara, aka Supergirl. And she just can't believe General Zod is now on Earth trying to kill her younger cousin, nor the fact that she's plagued with permanent resting bitch face after years of being locked up in some sort of Russian space testicle thing what suppressed her powers. So she goes upstairs to do some sunbathing and totally tries to cheer herself up a bit.
So good for you, girl. Go on.
Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work, given she's constantly subjected to the troubles of the world and also annoying twats who won't shut up, and then flies off in a strop, given she came here seeking asylum and instead just got put in a cage at the arse end of nowhere. And before you can say, well, them's the breaks, love, and maybe you should have just come here the legal way, Barry works with Bruce to recreate the conditions of his original accident, as Supergirl lurks above the desert to watch Zod kill a bunch of innocent military guys and probably do fuck all about it. Gah, what a hero! After subjecting himself to more lightning zaps to electroshock his body into being able to run, heal and vibrate fast again, he ends up taking too many volts, and it looks like it's curtains for the insufferable Flash fella with the blatant Asperger's, until that moody Supergirl bird returns who constantly looks constipated all the time, and flies him up into the storm clouds to charge him up like a human battery with the last dose of electric goodness.
Oh, shit, son.
After fashioning a makeshift Flash suit out of one of Bruce's old bat suits while we're just gathering dust inside his secret bookshelf compartment of Wayne Manor, the super group of DC Avengers head on over to the desert to smack her bitch up. As Kara shoots over to confront Zod about all his baby killing business, after he reveals he actually caught young Cal Ship in his timeline, extracted his juices and squeezed him dry like a lemon years ago. And also in this timeline, it's actually her whose DNA was encoded with the Codex of Krypton's lineage, what Zod needs to recreate their home planet on Earth because reasons. Meanwhile, the Flash bros are getting stuck in and scarred up, whilst the Bat Freak gets busy blowing up alien fighter jets to the soundtrack of the classic Danny Elfman score. Yeah, shameless nostalgic member berries, bro. Anyway, after everyone eats up a bit of screen time via mindless CGI smack 'em up scenes, Zod ends up killing Kara and the naughty Kryptonian ship takes out the Batwing, resulting in Batman taking himself out in a kamikaze run, probably after realising how fucking cringe this film turned out to be.
I totally get it.
Not willing to accept that they failed miserably in their one job of defeating Zod and keeping an untrained teenager and out of shape pensioner alive, the Flashes enter the Chrono Bowl and promptly try doing it all again, but this time making sure the dopey donuts don't actually get themselves deaded this time. Unfortunately, their mates keep refusing to live no matter what they seem to do to help them. And before you can say, maybe it's time to admit these versions of Batman and Supergirl are just fucking useless, Barry 2.0 refuses to face the obvious and give up, despite OG Barry's constant attempts to tell him that this is clearly one of them inevitable intersections of the multiverse and totally a fixed point in time and shit, and also that some problems just don't have solutions and so that he just needs to let go already. But he don't want to take no life advice from some Elliot Page looky-likey fella, and so just ends up going back so many times that he starts to break the space-time continuum and tear apart the fabric of reality. So much so that even other older versions of the classic heroes pop in to ask what the fuck's going on already, including a god-awfully rendered version of Chris Reeve's Superman, who looks like the VFX team just ran out of time and stuck a JPEG on his fucking head, and also Nick Cage's aborted mulleted incarnation from Superman Lives, who's out here fighting the infamous giant spider. Because super cringe and shameless fan service, bro. Before that crusty speed monster turns up again and reveals that he's a future version of Barry 2.0 who's totally obsessed with saving everyone all the time. But turns out he's as useless as their deaded super friends and a bigger failure than that Kamala Harris bird, given he's tried a billion times to redo this battle but can never ever save their new chums. No! Now accepting the inevitable and knowing what he must do to properly fix things, he returns to that fateful day in the supermarket and moves a can of tomatoes so his mother can't purchase them, thereby dooming her to a fatal knife attack sometime in the future without her even having to visit current day London for the pleasure. But first he takes a moment to cry like a little bitch and totally say goodbye to his about to be dead but not quite yet deaded mummy. As she just hugs this random wet wipe who she doesn't know from Adam and who's come up to her all emotional in a local shop.
Weird.
Now back in his current time after ensuring his mum suffers a horrible death in a light-hearted superhero movie, Barry rushes over to the courthouse to hear the verdict of his dad's latest appeal. And luckily, he's totally found innocent this time, given Barry also took the time to adjust the CCTV, showing his dad's whereabouts at the time of his wife's death, and thus proving his alibi once and for all. And we end with his chocolatey crush Iris inviting herself on a date with this scrawny incel fella, whilst Bruce Wayne calls him up and says he's about to pull up to congratulate him on his dad's success, only for some Silver Fox to step out dressed like Sir George at the Clooney's. What? And he just can't believe he's somehow ended up in the universe where Bat credit cards are a thing, Arnold Schwarzenegger sitting in a cell spouting ice puns 24/7, and Baz is now going to have to sit opposite Batman at the Justice League HQ with his rock hard bat nipples in his face all day.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
Oh, yes, Daddy!
And that's it. That's the movie. Well, apart from a completely pointless post-credit scene which adds absolutely nothing and goes fucking nowhere. Though my favourite part was Flash randomly announcing that he's a literal incel virgin when trying to disentangle Diana's lasso from a giant man-bat bloke.
I know sex exists, I've just never experienced it.
And my second favourite part was Kara leaving Barry hanging on a high five.
No fucking way, you made me look a right cunt!
Because the last time a girl tried to be friendly with Ezra Miller, she ended up getting choked out in broad daylight.
They never learn.
But anyway, that's the plot and that's your lot. Considering that bell thing so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you like this flick in the comments, well if you have time. And I'll vibrate through floors and walls and also scare the life out of elderly neighbours whilst covering my genitals with a small frying pan or with you in the next one.